A whimper in the hall, the metallic clang of boots against the corridor floor echoed like gunshots in the silence. The hallway was dim maintenance hours. Minimal lighting and cold, the kind of cold that slipped through your uniform and settled into your bones. At this late hour, the outer ring of the Interstellar Cadet Academy was usually empty, but not tonight. "Say it again," snarled a deep voice, vibrating with smug superiority. A small figure trembled against the wall, her hands pressed flat behind her, as if trying to merge into the cold alloy. She was barely 4 feet tall, her skin a soft, bioluminescent lavender. Her translucent ears twitched with each syllable spat at her. Her eyes large, glassy, and black reflected the 3 taller figures surrounding her. "Say it again." The one in the middle, the leader, stepped closer. His towering form was unmistakably cryolanth, obsidian scales, a crest of horn-like ridges, and a voice that seemed like it was forged in molten metal. His name was Vorak, and everyone knew his bloodline. He was born to conquer. "IID didn't mean," the girl stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Vorak's clawed hand slammed against the wall beside her head. The metal dented. "You didn't mean to insult my clan's honor," he sneered. "You think I don't hear that little squeak of yours in class, always correcting me in front of others? Your kind should be sweeping the filtration ducts, not studying beside the highborn." The other 2 Krylonth cadets chuckled, their eyes glowing a dull red. The girl Powerless said nothing. Her lip trembled, but her eyes did not lower. That, more than anything, seemed to enrage him. "You pathetic little flicker." Vorak leaned closer, breathing sulfur into her face. "You think the humans will protect you? You think because you're their science pet, you matter here?" A voice cut through the tension like a cold blade. "I think you should step away." The laughter died instantly. Vorak turned, slowly, as if the very notion that someone would interrupt him was somehow beyond the laws of physics. At the other end of the corridor, leaning against a bulkhead in the shadows, stood a single human, Cadet Mason Reed. He was average height by Galactic standards, average build, brown hair, unkempt. His uniform was clean but rumpled, like he'd just rolled out of bed, or hadn't bothered to fix it after a long night. He had one hand in his pocket. The other held a small datapad. He looked bored. Vorak squinted. "This isn't your business, human." Mason didn't move. "You're making it my business." One of Vorak's flanks growled. "You dare interfere with the Cryolonth blood challenge?" "No," Mason replied, slowly pushing off the wall. "I'm interfering with cowardice." Vorak's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You want a challenge, Reed? Because I'll give you one your soft-blooded bones won't forget." Mason sighed. "There it is, that famous Cryolonth creativity. Every time you feel threatened, you default to the same script." He stepped closer, now standing halfway down the corridor. His voice dropped lower, quieter, more dangerous. "You think shouting at a girl half your size in an empty hallway makes you a warrior? It doesn't. It makes you a statistic, the kind that ends up getting discharged for conduct violations." Vorak's claws flexed. Mason smiled, not the friendly kind. "Go ahead, take the swing. Just remember, every inch of this corridor is monitored. Security AI is reviewing this feed in real time. One punch from you, and you're on the next shuttle back to your planetary embassy, with your family name flagged in the Interspecies Alliance logs, permanently." A long silence. Then, with a snarl of frustration, Vorak turned and slammed his fist into the wall again, denting the metal before motioning to his friends. "She's not worth it," he growled. "Let's go." They stalked past Mason, brushing shoulders. One hissed something in a tongue that auto-translators refused to touch. Mason didn't even blink. When the corridor was quiet again, he finally turned to the girl. She was still against the wall, frozen. "You okay?" he asked. Virella blinked. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. "It's all right. They're gone," Mason said, softer now. "I'm not gonna hurt you." Virella nodded slowly and stepped away from the wall. Her legs trembled. Mason reached out instinctively, and she gripped his arm like a lifeline. Her fingers were cold, feather-light. He glanced down, and for a second, something flickered under her skin. A pulse of faint light, just beneath the surface, almost like bioluminescent circuitry. But when he blinked, it was gone. "You're Virella, right?" he asked, gently. She nodded again. "I've seen you in Xenobio class. Top scores." She looked up at him finally, her eyes wide, cautious. Why? Did you help me?" Mason hesitated, then shrugged. Because no one else did. That answer seemed to confuse her. She looked at him like he'd just spoken a language she didn't understand. Then she did something strange. She leaned in, just slightly, and whispered something. It wasn't in standard. It wasn't in any known dialect Mason had ever heard. The translator implant in his ear fizzled slightly, unable to process it. But the moment the words touched his skin, he felt cold, not just physically, like the universe had suddenly become aware of him, and didn't like what it saw. Virella's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to." What was that?" Mason asked, his voice hoarse. She took a step back, clearly frightened. I thought you were one of us. I'm sorry, I didn't know." "One of what?" Before she could answer, the hallway lights flickered. A deep synthetic voice rang out from overhead. "Cadet Mason Reed, please report to the Interdisciplinary Review Board immediately." Mason looked up, then back at Virella. She was already backing away, eyes full of fear, and something else. Recognition. Double quotes. "Be careful, Mason," she said quietly. "They're watching you now." She turned and ran. Mason stood alone in the corridor. Cold metal under his boots, the dented wall behind him still steaming from Vorik's fury, and in his ears, her impossible words echoed not just in sound, but in meaning. Though his translator failed somehow, he understood them. "The sleeper wakes, and the stars remember." Secrets in her eyes, Mason stood in front of the towering, obsidian glass doors of the Interdisciplinary Review Board chamber. His reflection stared back, eyes, tousled hair, faint smudge of oil on his sleeve. His badge glinted faintly on his chest. "Cadet First Class, Earth Delegation." The doors hissed open. A semicircular room greeted him. Clean, clinical. 10 elevated seats arced before him, occupied by a mix of alien faculty and AI proxies, with a holotag: xenoculture, security and protocol, genetic ethics, interstellar law. And in the center, floating slightly above the floor, the chair of the board, Dean Arvelin, a silver-skinned Sirenary with mirrored eyes and a voice like rain hitting glass. "Cadet Mason Reed," Arvelin said, tone polite but impersonal. "You accessed a restricted knowledge stream outside approved channels. Would you like to explain your actions?" Mason didn't blink. "Yes, I was researching the history of the Threlly species after an incident involving Cadet Virella." A soft hum from one of the AI probes. "Cadet Virella is under protective status," Arvelin replied. "Her record access is tightly regulated. Your attempt to override her classification triggered an alert." "I didn't override anything," Mason said calmly. "The file unlocked on its own, as if it wanted to be found." That drew a subtle ripple from the panel. A few faculty glanced at one another. The AI tagged genetic ethics blinked red. "That is not possible. The file was quadruple encrypted under treaty protocol Theta." "I know what I saw," Mason said, "and something in that file recognized my access code." Silence. Then Arvelin's voice, silkier than before. "You're dismissed, Cadet Reed. This matter will be reviewed." "Dismissed?" Mason's brow furrowed. "That's it. No punishment." Arvelin smiled faintly. "You're not in trouble, Mason. We just appreciate your curiosity." The words felt wrong. Too smooth, too controlled. Mason nodded and left, the back of his neck tingling. With every step, he could feel them watching. Later that day, Deck 7, East Wing Observation Hall. The Academy's glass observation deck was nearly empty, only a few alien students meditating in the far corners. Stars sprawled out in all directions beyond the transparent dome. Earth was just a pale blue dot in the distance. Mason sat alone on the ledge, staring at his datapad. He'd downloaded what he could before the file vanished. Most of it was corrupted fragments, but a few lines remained readable. Threlly genome contains dormant quantum lattice markers, non-biological, possibly inserted. Subject Class 7, H-alpha. Cognitive empathy trigger unlocks dormant interspecies bond interface. Human resonance suspected. Human resonance, that phrase kept replaying in his mind. Virella's whisper, the feeling it gave him. The phrase that bypassed every logical part of his brain and struck something. Older. He tapped the pad again, rerunning a scan of the remaining data. Suddenly, a soft voice spoke behind him. "You shouldn't be looking into me." Mason turned. Virella stood at the entrance of the dome, her lavender skin glowing faintly under the starlight. She wore her academy uniform, but it hung off her like she barely belonged in it. She looked out of place like someone trying to wear a body not built for them. Mason stood slowly. Why not? Because it's dangerous, she said. For both of us. You whispered something to me yesterday, Mason said carefully. The translator didn't catch it, but I understood it. Varela looked away. Then it's already started. What has... She didn't answer immediately. She walked past him and placed her hand gently against the glass, staring out at the stars. Do you know how many species hate humans, Mason? Most, he replied with a small smile. She didn't laugh. There's a reason for that, she said. It's not because of your wars or your weapons. It's because your species is loud. Mason frowned. Loud. Emotionally, she explained. You feel everything so vividly. You hurt more. Love harder. Rage brighter. We were taught to fear that. But some feared it less and envied it more. She turned, looking directly into his eyes. My people weren't supposed to survive the collapse. But before we disappeared, we tried one last experiment. A bond, a way to bridge species, not through language or treaties but through shared emotion, through resonance. You think humans are part of that bond? Mason asked. No, she said. I think we were part of yours. He didn't understand, but a chill ran through him. Varela took a shaky breath. I was asleep for a long time, stored, altered, maybe even rewritten. When I saw you stand up to Vorak, I remembered something I shouldn't have. What a ship. Not this one. A memory. I was on a table, lights above me, voices. One of them was human. Mason's throat tightened. What were they saying? She swallowed. They said, it worked. She responded to the human echo. Mason backed up a step. Are you saying someone humans helped make you a donor? She said. But I think I'm not just Threlly. I think I'm something. Between the air grew heavier. Suddenly, the datapad in Mason's hand buzzed violently. An alert blinked. Security override. Personal device breach attempted. Source. Neural network. Room beta 9. Varela flinched. They're tracking you. Then let's give them something to track. Mason muttered. Later. Subdeck 3. Server bay corridor. It took an override code from a sympathetic janitor drone, long story, and a risky crawl through a duct system. But Mason finally reached server bay beta-9. He held up his pad. This is where the breach originated. Varela hesitated behind him. If you go in there, they'll know everything. They already do. He pushed the door open. Inside, blinking server columns hummed quietly. Holographic displays flickered on the walls. No personnel, just a chair, a single chair facing a terminal. And sitting in it, barely visible beneath a cloak, was another cadet, or something like one. As Mason stepped closer, the figure turned. It was a pile-length, but smaller, thinner, younger. His eyes weren't red, they were a pale, icy blue. You accessed the file, he said softly. Mason stopped cold. Who are you? I'm Vorak's half-brother, the alien said. But I don't share his loyalty. Varela stepped forward. Why are you watching me? Because you're not what they say you are, the boy replied. You're not a mistake. You're a message. A message for who? Mason asked. The cryolanth boy looked directly at Mason. For you. He tapped a button on the console, and a holovideo sprang to life. It showed a lab Earth-based, decades ago. Scientists speaking in hushed tones. In the background, a cryochamber. Inside, a child, lavender-skinned, small, sleeping. Begin sequence. Introduce the emotional variable, subject, or control. Control. Human male, age-matched. Keep interaction limited. Mason watched in stunned silence as a child himself. No older than 5 was brought into the room. He sat beside the chamber, confused but calm. He placed his hand on the glass. The figure inside. Varela shifted for the first time. The video ended. Mason felt like he'd been dropped into open space. No air, no up or down. Just confusion and cold. You were always meant to find her, the cryolanth boy said. That's why she woke up when you arrived. That's why you understood her. Varela's eyes welled with tears. I remember that touch. I thought it was a dream. Mason didn't speak. He couldn't. The door behind them suddenly hissed open. Red lights flooded the room. Cadet Reed. Step away from the console. Security drones. Armed. Varela grabbed his hand. We have to run. But Mason didn't move. He looked at the screen one last time. His younger self frozen in that moment of contact. Something deeper than memory stirred in him. Something ancient, forgotten, human. Then he turned and ran. the forbidden file, the alarms faded behind them as Mason and Varela dashed through the maintenance shaft, boots thudding against the cold steel grating. The tunnel walls narrowed and curved, the flickering emergency lights throwing fractured shadows that danced like ghosts. The further they got from the server room, the quieter the station became, mirrorly so. Mason's breath came hard and fast, but his mind was racing faster. That video, that moment in the lab, it wasn't just a coincidence. He had touched her before, somehow, somewhere. I remember now, Varela whispered, climbing behind him. Your hand. I felt it when I was still asleep. That warmth. I've been chasing that feeling ever since I woke up in this time. This time, Mason echoed, ducking under a support beam. What do you mean, this time? I wasn't born in this era, she said, her voice trembling. I was created long before your birth, before this academy. I was placed in stasis, until a human's presence would trigger my reawakening. They paused at a hatch, panting. Why would someone do that? Mason asked. Why hide you? Why wait for me? Varela looked away. Because I'm the last of a lost message, and you were designed to hear it. Upper Ring Archives, restricted wing. The hatch creaked open. The room beyond was quiet, coated in dust. It had the stillness of a place no one had entered in years. This place doesn't appear on the current schematics, Mason said, scanning the room. Looks like it was shut down during the first expansion. Varela stepped inside, drawn to a wall of sealed crates and stasis canisters, marked in a language neither of them recognized. This is where we might find answers. As Mason approached a terminal, he noticed an old-style manual port, no biometric locks, no AI surveillance. Analog by necessity, he inserted his pad and initiated a slow data pull. You okay? He asked her. Varela was staring at a cracked containment tank. This was one of the others. They were more like me. I can feel it. Mason turned toward her, the data still loading behind him. Varela, what exactly are you? She looked at him, and for the first time, didn't seem afraid of the question. I was a prototype, a bridge between species. My people, the Threlly, were dying, not from war, but from emotional starvation. We lacked what humans had, a depth of empathy, passion, a spark. So they tried to merge it. Mason whispered. Yes, she said. They contacted human scientists in secret, the early interstellar diplomatic councils. My genetics were modified to carry a linker resonance pattern that only activates when exposed to intense human emotional energy, like compassion, like what you did when you stood up for me. The terminal beeped. Data filled the screen in fragmented segments, reports, test logs, memory records. Project Echo Seed. Subject Varela, Hybrid Class 7 HR. Objective, establish interspecies empathic broadcast network using human neurological triggers. Mason scrolled through more files. One image stopped him cold. It was a scan of Varela's brain during the first human interaction. A resonance pattern had bloomed like a fractal-rich neural connection, sparking in perfect sync with the human child beside her. His child photo. You weren't just created, Mason said, quietly. You were connected to me from the start. I was waiting for you, Varela replied. Sudden movement, the shadow returns, the lights flickered. Varela snapped her head toward the door. They found us. But it wasn't the Academy guards. From the far end of the archive, Vorak stepped out of the shadows alone. Mason instinctively moved in front of Varela. You again. But Vorak didn't look smug this time. He looked shaken. I'm not here to fight, he said. Mason didn't relax. Could have fooled me. Vorak's eyes flicked to Varela. I came to warn you. There's a bounty on her now. Quiet, unofficial, backed by someone higher than the Academy board. Varela's voice was a whisper. Who? Vorak didn't answer immediately. The Council of Origin. Mason stiffened. They don't even officially exist. They do, Vorak said. They've been manipulating bloodlines, treaties, species dominance charts for centuries. They're terrified of what Varela represents. If she proves humans can merge with older alien tech merge, emotionally everything changes. Mason narrowed his eyes. Why are you telling us this? Vorak looked ashamed. Because I was raised to see power as dominance. But today, I watched someone small stand tall, and someone arrogant may look like a fool. He turned to Varela. I saw the light under your skin. It wasn't tech, it was memory. I think you're more than just a hybrid. I think you're a key to what? Varela asked. He glanced at the ceiling, as if afraid someone was listening. to the archive of pre-singularity sentience. If your emotions are broadcastable, if they can resonate, you could awaken relics that haven't stirred in millennia. Mason and Virella exchanged looks. How do we find the archive? Mason asked. Vorak smiled faintly. You don't. It finds you when you're ready. Return to the dorm wing. Late night Mason snuck Virella into his dorm. The lights were off. His roommate, a center being, who slept inside a nutrient pod, wouldn't notice. They sat quietly on the floor. He handed her a protein bar. She sniffed. It wrinkled her nose, but took a bite anyway. I've never seen Vorak like that, Mason said. He felt it. Virella murmured. When I panicked earlier, my energy pulse reached him. He didn't understand it, but it affected him. Is that what your species wanted? Mason asked. To spread emotional awareness like broadcast. She nodded. Not just awareness, harmony, understanding across language and biology. Then why would the Council fear that? Because peace doesn't profit, she said. Fear keeps control intact. Mason rubbed his eyes. And now that they know we're bonded, they'll come for us both. She looked at him then deeply. You don't have to stay involved. He held her gaze. I already am. Cliffhanger. The realization suddenly. Mason's datapad blinked. A new file had appeared. One that hadn't been there before. Not from the archives. It was titled simply, Echo Log, Origin, Pulse Detected. He tapped it. A voice played. Of Virella. Not of the Council, but his own voice years ago. From childhood I'll protect her. I promise. Even if they forget, I won't. Mason stared, stunned. His hand trembled. Virella's eyes widened. That's the oath. What? The oath of the first Echo pair, she whispered. It was thought lost forever. But now, she reached toward him, her fingers hovering just above his hand. Their skin didn't touch, but the light beneath hers began to glow again. Then, something deeper ignited. A soft hum filled the air. The room darkened around them just slightly. Outside the window, stars blinked rapidly, and from deep within the station's core, unseen by anyone else, a long dormant subroutine quietly activated. Echo interface signal. Received authorization. Human Threlly status. Awake. The memory lock somewhere deep in the station beneath decks never mapped. In servers long thought decommissioned, a light blinked for the first time in centuries. It wasn't visible to the naked eye. It pulsed within the machine's synthetic neurons, signaling one simple truth. The connection has been re-established. Upper dormitory, human wing. 312 standard, galactic time. Mason jolted awake. The lights in his room were off, but he felt that something was wrong. The air was heavier, almost humming. He turned his head. Virella stood in the center of the room, completely still. Her skin, usually soft lavender, now shimmered with faint veins of light beneath the surface, like a star map had been traced into her flesh. Her eyes were closed. Her lips moved, though no sound came out. Virella. Mason whispered. No response. He got up and approached carefully. As he touched her shoulder, her eyes snapped open, and she wasn't looking at him. She wasn't looking anywhere. I see them, she whispered. The stars before they were born. The species who tried. The war that made us forget. Her knees buckled. Mason caught her before she fell. She blinked rapidly, like someone waking from anesthesia. What happened? You tell me, he said gently. You were glowing. I remember. Fragments. Her voice trembled. An archive buried in me, locked. But the signal, your presence, unlocked something. Not a memory, a message. What kind of message? That we were meant to evolve together. Abandoned wing hall of extinct species. They returned to the place no one visited. The hall of extinct species, now little more than a neglected museum of failure. Holograms flickered above dusty plinths, showing faded images of beings lost to war, disease, or their own arrogance. Virella moved with strange confidence now. This place feels familiar. You've never been here before, Mason said. I have, she replied softly. Just not in this life. At the far end of the hall, behind a cracked case labeled simply Threlly, Virella stopped. The image above the plinth showed her people, tall, graceful beings of light and shadow. But something was off. That's not right, she muttered. We didn't look like that, not originally. She reached toward the base of the display. Her fingers brushed a barely visible emblem. The hologram shimmered. Glitchtan changed. A hidden layer beneath the display activated. The image now showed two beings, a Threlly and a human, hands joined. Between them, a third figure, a hybrid. Child, not quite either. Both. Mason stared. This was real, she said. We weren't just studying emotions, we were preparing for convergence. Convergence. He asked a permanent interspecies bond. Emotional, neurological, cultural. A union that would have forced peace across entire civilizations. Why didn't it happen? She turned to him. Because someone locked the memory. Meanwhile, the Watchers react far across the galaxy. In the glass black halls of the Council of Origin, silent alarms echoed through void space. A projection of Virella hovered above a circular table. She has awakened the bond, said a tall being in deep violet robes, and the human is responding. They were never meant to succeed, replied another, older voice. The Echo project was shelved for a reason. A third voice, cool and synthetic. If the memory completes its unlock, the archive will activate. We will lose control. Then we must sever the connection before the awakening reaches full resonance. Back on the station, memory integration begins. Mason and Virella sat on the floor of the abandoned wing. The air buzzed faintly around them. I can't access everything yet, she said. It's still locked behind. Feelings, like the deeper I feel, the more comes back. So what do you need to feel? She hesitated. Loss, hope, courage, things I've only seen in others, never truly experienced myself. He leaned forward, voice low. Then let's experience it together. She looked up sharply. Why are you doing this, Mason? You barely know me. Because I've felt this before, he said. Back when I was a kid, when I touched that cryoglass, I felt like I'd found something I'd lost. Something I didn't even know I was missing. Virella's eyes shimmered. You remember that? I didn't till now. She reached out slowly. This time, when their fingers touched, it was deliberate. The moment they connected, the room flashed. Suddenly, they weren't in the museum anymore. Inside the memory lock shared vision they stood. In a vast white void, endless still, like the inside of a thought. Before them, tall crystalline towers floated, each pulsing with light. A voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Welcome, Echo Pair, initiating memory stream. Suddenly, the towers flickered. Scenes burst from the crystals. A young Threlly girl reaching toward the stars, crying as her city burns behind her. A human boy standing in the ruins of Earth's third war, hugging a photo of a sister long gone. Two children, meeting across space and time, their palms pressed against a screen. A council chamber filled with fire and shouting as the plan to unite species is shut down. A stasis pod, a whisper, we'll hide her in the stars. Someday, they'll find each other. Then the white space collapsed. They were back, breathing hard. Virella wiped her eyes. Those were real. Those were our memories. Past lives, past connections. I think they left it all inside you, Mason said, waiting. Emergency alert. Security lockdown. Suddenly, red lights flared in the hallway. Security override. Subject Virella, designated as a galactic risk entity. Do not approach. What the hell? Mason backed away from the speaker. They're coming for me, Virella said, her voice calm. They think if they shut me down, they stop the awakening. But they're wrong, Mason said. Because I've seen it now too, and I won't let them erase it. Sirens echoed across the station. Mason grabbed her hand. We need to disappear. She looked at him, and this time she didn't hesitate. Cliffhanger. The eye opens. They race through corridors, dodging drones and lockdown gates. Vorak appeared briefly at a junction, throwing Mason a small device. A gift, he said. It'll scramble your signal for 15 minutes. Use it well. Why are you helping us? Mason asked as they ran past. Vorak's smile was grim. Because I think she's not the anomaly. You are. They reached the auxiliary shuttle bay, hidden behind crates and repair bots. Virella knelt and pressed her hand against a smooth wall. Light glowed beneath her fingers. A seam opened an invisible doorway. Inside was a chamber of smooth organic metal, unmarked, undocumented, a vessel. Where did this come from? Mason breathed. Virella didn't answer because she couldn't speak, not while the words filled her mind. Ancient, foreign, and hers all at once. The time has come. The eye must open. A pulse of energy rippled across the station. Far below, in the core of the station, something stirred. A vault, long thought dead, began to hum, and in a language no longer spoken aloud. The system responded. Echo pattern verified. Archive awakening initiated. When the archive speaks, the ancient vessel hummed beneath their feet. Mason stood just inside the threshold, eyes wide, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The walls weren't constructed, they were grown, like the hull was part organic, part metal, flowing like a liquid frozen in mid. Soft light glowed along the edges, pulsing faintly in sync with Virella's presence. She stood in the center, eyes closed, as if listening to a language only she could hear. "I've been here before," she whispered, "but only in dreams." Mason slowly stepped forward. This ship wasn't built by any known species, was it? "No," she said. "It was grown for a single purpose, to house the memory of every attempt at peace the galaxy tried to forget." He reached out and touched the wall. It was warm. It almost breathed. "Is this what the Council of Origin wanted to keep hidden?" She nodded. "They erased the original convergence experiments. They feared a future where no species held dominance, where emotions, not power-linked civilizations." Mason swallowed. "And now they know you've found the ship." "Worse," she said. "Now they know we're connected." Meanwhile, Council of Origin, deep chamber. They've entered the vault. The cold voice hissed. A projection of the ancient vessel floated above a glowing table. Now fully powered for the first time in millennia. They've reactivated the organic interface. The archive is waking. "We underestimated the human." Another voice said. A third chimed in. "It's not just him. He's an echo bearer. His genome, his memories, they were part of the original experiment. They've bonded. The resonance is stabilizing. So we move to termination." "No, not yet. Not until we retrieve what's left of the archive." Then, he raised them both. Inside the vessel, awakening, the archive panels opened along the inner walls, revealing crystalline consoles that responded to Virella's touch like instruments, responding to a symphony. Mason watched in awe. "She's interfacing," a voice behind him said. He spun around. Vorak stood in the entryway, panting, blood on his shoulder. "You're hurt," Mason said, rushing to him. "Doesn't matter." Vorak growled. "Security found me after I gave you the jammer. Had to lead them in a different direction. Bought you maybe 30 minutes. You came back." Vorak met his eyes. "Because she's not the one changing everything. Reed, you are." Mason frowned. "What do you mean you didn't just wake her? You stabilized the signal. The bond between you and her's real. She's the catalyst, but you're the anchor." Mason's voice dropped. "How do you know that?" "Because I saw the simulation logs in the Council's private archive. The only scenario where the Echo Network achieved galactic-wide resonance was with one human. The memory flooded suddenly. A low hum vibrated through the ship. The central chamber lit up. The archive had awakened. A beam of pale blue light surrounded Virella. She floated slightly, eyes glowing, no longer lavender, but white-hot, like starlight. Pressed into form. Mason stepped forward but couldn't enter the circle of light. She spoke not with her voice, but with all voices, thousands layered into one, ancient, forgotten, grieving. "We were the ones who tried. We opened our minds to others. We sought not conquest, but understanding. And for this, we were buried." The ship projected scenes around them. A ship arriving at Earth in pre-warp years, hidden behind the moon. Human scientists studying alien empathy. A secret bond between a human boy and a hybrid child. A war, a betrayal. The Council rising. Memory wipes. Data erasure. Whole civilizations scrubbed from the record. And one last act of defiance, placing Virella into stasis, encoding a message into her DNA. A beacon, a hope. That the projection ended. Virella collapsed. Mason caught her mid-fall. Her voice was weak. "I saw everything. All the times we tried. All the times it failed. Until now." He held her close. "You're not alone anymore." Council's final play. The false broadcast back in orbit. The Council activated a new strategy. A fabricated warning. Broadcast across all frequencies. "Attention all Galactic Alliance vessels. Human cadet Mason Reed and Threlly hybrid have initiated an unauthorized psychic weapon capable of system-wide disruption. Use of lethal force authorized for containment." The message spread like wildfire. Ships diverted. Commanders hesitated. War satellites pivoted toward the Academy's region, and in the heart of the chaos, two figures, barely more than students, were about to challenge the entire structure of galactic control. "Last stand. Preparing the ship. We don't have weapons," Mason said as they prepped the ship for launch. "We don't have shields. How are we supposed to defend ourselves?" Virella placed a hand on the console. The ship responded, lines of light glowing under her fingers. "This vessel doesn't fight with weapons," she said. "It transmits." Mason narrowed his eyes. "Transmits what?" "Truth." She guided him to the co-pilot's seat. "You need to connect again. The final resonance needs both of us." "I don't know how," he said. "I'm not special." "You don't have to be," she said softly. "You just have to feel." He took a breath. He closed his eyes and remembered the feeling of standing up to Vorak, the fire in his chest when he saw her afraid, the echo of her voice in the corridor, the memory of her touch, even from childhood, the words he'd whispered in a lab so long ago. "I'll protect her, even if they forget." "I won't." The signal release light surged through the chamber. Outside the vessel, every ship near the Academy stopped frozen. Inside every Mandalian, human, machine pulse echoed. Not a word, not a sound, a feeling. Pain, hope, fear, kindness, grief, joy. Every species felt it at once. Unity, not command. Not obedience, but connection that lasted less than a second, but it changed everything. Cliffhanger. Revelation from the Cortha ship settled into silence. Mason gasped. What did we just do?" Varella's face was streaked with tears. "We activated the echo wave, the first real one." The console blinked. A single message appeared on the screen. "Echo pair, verified. Convergence, sequence ready." Then a second message followed. "Second pair detected. Coordinates tracing." Mason's breath caught. "What does that mean?" Varella's voice was quiet. "It means we weren't the only ones. Far away, on a forgotten moon orbiting a dying star, another pod flickered to life. Inside it, another hybrid slowly opened her eyes. And across the stars, a human convulsed in his sleep, dreaming of someone he'd never met. We were meant to remember." The ship hovered in silence above the Academy, now in lockdown. Below, the station's lights blinked in confusion. Dozens of vessels circled but held their fire, frozen by what they'd just experienced. The homeopathy echo wave had shattered something. Not metal, not systems, but certainty. Because for the first time, every species had felt the same thing at the same moment. Another's soul. Inside the ship, convergent sequence begins. Varella's body trembled, her hand still on the console. Mason sat beside her, equally breathless. "What just happened?" he whispered. "We opened them," she said. "Not just their minds, but their histories, their buried grief, their forgotten attempts at peace." The echo didn't just show them us, it reminded them of themselves. The screen pulsed again. Convergence sequence initiated. "Identity lock required." "What's identity lock?" Mason asked. Varella's voice lowered. "It means the archive needs to confirm we're ready, that we accept the truth of who we are, not as species, as people." Mason exhaled. "Then let's do it." He reached out and took her hand, and the ship responded. A hum, a vibration, then light dash everywhere. Vision, the origin of the project. Their minds were drawn into a vision, not of destruction, of hope. They saw an ancient council chamber, not the Council of Origin, but a different one. Older, kinder, Threlly scientists, human thinkers, and others. Dozens of species gathered not for war, but for unity. The convergence accord. "We cannot rely on words, or treaties, or logic," a Threlly woman spoke. "Only by sharing what is deepest our feelings can we end the cycle. We must seed resonance, in children, in memory, in time." The plan had begun. But the Council of Origin, threatened by peace, sabotaged it. Records were destroyed, witnesses silenced, but a seed survived. 2 children, connected by a single moment. A human hand against cryoglass, a promise, even if they forget. "I won't." The vision faded. Back in reality. The Council's last move. The console glitched. Sparks flew. A foreign signal hijacked the vessel. Mason turned. "They're trying to shut us down." The voice came over every frequency. Cold, hollow, desperate. "You will not complete the convergence. You are anomalies. Dangerous. You do not represent your kind." Mason stood, jaw clenched. "Then why are you afraid of us?" The silence on the channel was answer enough. "They know they've already lost," Varela said. But the console dimmed. The power was fading. "Without full convergence, the archive will sleep again," she said quietly. Mason looked at her, and, for the first time, he understood what had to happen. "The decision, human heart, Varela," he said softly. "You were designed to transmit. I was designed to anchor. But together we are the message. I know, she said, but convergence can't happen unless one of us finishes the signal. She looked at the console, then back at him. Mason, if you stay in this ship, you'll lose yourself in the signal. You'll become part of it. Maybe, he said, but maybe that's the point. She stepped closer. You'd be gone. He shook his head. No, I'd just become the promise. He smiled. You said you were waiting for me. She nodded, eyes welling. Then let me be what you waited for. Convergence complete. He placed her hand on the core crystal dot, then placed his own over it. The ship pulsed -once. The archive opened. Not just here but everywhere, all across the galaxy. Buried devices, forgotten archives, lit up, and from them, stories, truths, emotions, real recordings, hidden memories, the true history of species, of attempts at peace, of bonds, of love, of failure, of trying again. A million sparks, a wave of remembrance, and at the center one signal, a boy who never forgot, a girl who was never alone. Two hands, joined across time, then stillness, aftermath. 1 week later, the galaxy didn't explode. No war began, but something shifted. Diplomats began requesting translations of ancient peace accords that had long been suppressed. Emotional research centers were flooded with funding. Children across species began dreaming of people they had never met, and somehow always knew. On the Interstellar News Network, there was a strange phrase trending in every major language. Remember now, the Academy Memorial Gardena small garden was constructed at the edge of the station. There was no statue, just a plaque, in memory of those who taught us to feel again. Virella stood before it, hands clasped. She looked different now, not just older but whole. She wasn't hiding anymore. Behind her, Vorak approached, quiet and uncharacteristically respectful. You okay? He asked. She didn't turn around. He's not gone. He's everywhere now. I know, Vorak said. I felt it. She finally looked at him. The council collapsed. He said, public outrage. Their secrecy couldn't survive the signal. Good, she whispered. It's time people stop being afraid of each other's emotions. He nodded, then hesitated. What now? She looked at the stars. We rebuild the accord, she said, and this time, we finish it. Final scene, across the stars in a quiet corner of the galaxy. An orphaned hybrid child stood inside a long-abandoned lab. A hologram flickered to life before her. It showed Mason, smiling. If you're seeing this, then it worked, and you are not alone. No matter who you are, no matter what you feel, someone out there understands. Let them in. That's how peace begins. The girl touched the glass and smiled back. Final words in the end. It wasn't technology that changed the galaxy. Not weapons, not politics, not domination. It was a boy who refused to forget, and a girl who finally remembered who she was. They didn't conquer, they connected, and through them we remembered how to feel. The END